The random jottings of Donald J. from Nelson in Pendle. The Imperial Ballroom Carr Road, Nelson, Lancashire. Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The air was thick with anticipation, a heady mix of perfume and sweat, as the Imperial Ballroom Carr Road, Nelson, Lancashire prepared for its weekly event. The young dancers, their bodies still untouched by time and experience, flooded the room like a wave of effervescent energy. They were here for one reason and one reason only, to lose themselves in the hypnotic rhythms of the 1960s rock and roll. It was a time of rebellion, of defiance, and of course, of love. Love in all its messy, beautiful forms. Amongst the throng of dancers, there were those who stood out. There was Anthony, with his dark curls and piercing blue eyes, the very embodiment of the Casanova image. He moved across the floor like a panther, his gaze flickering from one girl to another, seeking out his next conquest. Then there was Jim, the romantic soul of the group. His dancing was smooth and effortless, his movements dictated by some invisible melody only he could hear. His eyes, when they met those of a certain girl in the crowd, would soften, and a smile would spread across his face. Meanwhile, Jimmy the Casanova boy was busy working his charms on one of the older girls in the crowd. He leaned in close, whispering sweet nothings into her ear as he expertly guided her through the complicated steps of the twist. It was obvious that Jimmy knew how to make a girl feel special, and she was eating out of the palm of his hand. Keep her fingers. David, on the other hand, was a different story entirely. He was a decent enough dancer, but his hands were like a blur, twitching and flailing about like a squirrel on speed. It was almost as if he was trying too hard to impress the girls, and in the process, only managed to make himself look foolish. As for Neil, the shy and reserved boy, he lurked in the shadows, his face pale as a ghost, his eyes darting nervously from side to side. He'd been coming to these balls for months now, but had yet to work up the courage to actually ask a girl to dance. And then there was me, Donald. Oh, Donald. With my slicked back hair and my too wide grin, the girls just couldn't seem to get enough of me. They'd practically be throwing themselves at my feet, begging for a dance. Of course, I'd oblige them, of course I would. That was half the fun, after all. But even amidst all the attention, there was one girl who always seemed to stand out. Her name was Amelia, and she was the prettiest thing I'd ever laid eyes on. Her hair was the color of spun gold, and her eyes were as green as emeralds. She moved across the floor like a swan gliding across a still lake, graceful and effortless. Every time I saw her, my heart would skip a beat, and all I could think about was the way her lips would curl into a smile whenever our eyes met. As the music reached its climax, I found myself right beside her, my hands clasped tightly around hers. She looked up at me, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world had disappeared, leaving only the two of us. We danced, our bodies swaying in perfect harmony, her hands guiding mine through the intricate steps of the foxtrot. She leaned in closer, her breath tickling my ear, and I could feel my heart racing. "You know, Donald," she whispered, "you're not so bad yourself." I couldn't help but grin. "Oh, Amelia," I replied, "you have no idea how much I've been wanting to hear you say that." And with that, we continued to dance, lost in the music and each other, oblivious to the world around us. As the night wore on, I grew bolder, more confident in my actions. I began to see a future with her, one where we were together, dancing under the stars, our children laughing and playing around us. I knew it was a foolish dream, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted it more than anything. I wanted to be with her forever. Unfortunately, life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. One moment, everything is perfect, and the next, it's all gone. That's exactly what happened to me. Amelia, she disappeared. One day, she was there, dancing with me like we'd been doing it forever, and the next, she was gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just gone. I searched for her for weeks, months even. I'd haunt the dance halls, hoping against hope that I'd catch a glimpse of her golden hair or those emerald eyes. But it was no use. She'd vanished without a trace. Eventually, I had to accept the truth. I'd lost her. And with her, a piece of my heart. The months turned into years, and I found myself growing old before my time. My hair grayed, my steps slowed, and my heart ached with the memory of her. I tried to move on, to find someone else who could make me feel the way she had, but it was no use. No one could ever replace her. I spent my days wandering aimlessly through the city, haunted by the ghost of what might have been. Sometimes, I'd find myself standing outside the old dance hall, watching through the windows as couples danced beneath the twinkling lights. A bitter smile would curl my lips as I'd recall the night I'd first seen her, how she'd changed my life in an instant. By Donald J.